Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to This is an IT Support Group. I'm joined again by Lewis Pope, head nerd at Enable.
Howdy again, Ed.
So, if you haven't met Lewis before, or you haven't tuned to any of our live streams before, Lewis is a head nerd at Enable. He deals with a lot of security orientated stuff on a daily basis. So, we're going to chat to Lewis today about some security happenings within the last couple of weeks and get you up to date with everything you need to know. So, Lewis, I guess we'll just jump into the first question. This most recent Patch Tuesday dropped fixes for a record-breaking 172 fixes and vulnerabilities. It also marks the end of support for Windows 10. So for anyone that has Windows 10 devices that are still in production, what are the statistical versus maybe the practical concerns about leaving these devices out?
So there's just the statistics of it's now an unsupported system that's going to have vulnerabilities come out, and that's going to increase the likelihood that they will be hit by some type of an attack. Now, figuring out the actual statistical likelihood is, can be a fool's errand sometimes, but it is going to increase, and it's going to increase over time. So you have to take that into account that yes, we are going to have a riskier asset now. But then there's the practical implications for teams are if it is your responsibility and you're accountable for the safety of those systems, being able to make the realization and articulate to decision makers that the 800-pound gorilla is saying, we're not going to take care of this anymore. You have to now pick up the slack for the fact that they're not going to be taking care of it anymore, or enroll in the extended security updates program so that those systems that if the business makes the decision that we need to keep these Windows 10 systems in operation for whatever line of business application that they're needed for, or whatever business workflow they're needed for, enroll them in the ESU program. It is a license. It does cost, I believe it's about $61 for the license for enterprise and organizations. The consumer ESU is only $30, but the consumer version is only going to be viable for 1 year of continued security updates. The organizational and enterprise ESU program gives you up to 3 years. So you still have the ability to get some security updates to keep these things out there in a relatively safer way for longer, but this is just giving you more time to do what you're going to have to do anyway at some point, upgrade them to 11. So it's breathing room, not an excuse to not think about it anymore.
Yeah, I'd say, what's your take on this ESU pricing model? Is it reasonable for organizations that genuinely need more time, or does it feel a bit punitive?
I mean, it can be, depending on uh, which side of the fence you're on. Yes, it feels a little punitive that, hey, why are you no longer providing security updates for this iOS that still has like a, substantial distribution base? Not, and probably going to still trail for a while before we get, more off into 11. So yes, a little bit of it does feel a little punitive, but at the same time, it's necessary because,
Yeah.
we want Microsoft to continue to put some effort into dealing with these things for the betterment of the wider community. And if this is what it takes to incentivize them to do that, then okay.
Have you seen any kind of creative workarounds, we'll call them, that try and avoid both upgrade costs and also the ESU fees? And what are the risks of organizations doing that?
Right. Yep. So there's always a way around. And it used to be that ESU, previous implementations of ESU was relatively easy. It was toggling a registry key value. With the new version of ESU, it's actually tied to keys now. So unique VLKs that you would be getting from a purchase of the licensing through Microsoft. And then, of course, applying those is then going to be through Intune, through another automation platform, through Insight, Incentral, whatever you've got that you can push PowerShell scripts to make modifications to the endpoint. You'll be able to use those to enroll them in the ESU program with those license keys that you get.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess for MSPs specifically, how should they be messaging this to their clients who have kind of been dragging their feet, we'll say, on these upgrades?
Right. So this is the we should have hopefully would have already had conversations about this. But if you do have those stragglers, ones that have been not absolutely refusing to have the conversations, they may start getting pester messages that Microsoft starts pushing about, hey, you're on a end of support version of Windows. We want you to purchase an extended security update license, or however they decide that Microsoft may want to approach that. So they may solve half of the challenge of having a conversation for you there. But there's always, a business makes business decisions, whether they are well-informed or ill-informed. And this is another one of those business decisions of, do we keep using Windows 10 because, hey, everything still just is working, or do we put in the time and the effort to schedule the upgrades to 11? And if we have some systems that can't be upgraded to 11, okay, we'll take the capital, we'll take the CapEx expense hit and, buy some new equipment. But if you're on the IT side of it, you need to help the business make it an informed decision about it. Bring up ESU. If we're going to put it, best practices to have ESU, and also us doing ESU would also demonstrate we're practicing due care and due diligence.
So we've got a little comment that's just come in here from Thomas. He says, let's be honest, I still run Windows 7 and no cyber attacks. It's always user error. Just wants to nickel and dime you.
It is always the case of, well, what are you using it for?
Yeah.
I still have I still have a landscape and architectural design company that I took care of just down the road from me for many, many years, that are still running Windows XP boxes for some of their drafting solutions, because, well, they need it, it works, and they don't have to connect it to the internet, because it never connected to the internet.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be these endpoints that are left around running ancient old systems and operating systems, and it's just a matter of time. The only hope for them is the air gapping, but doesn't take much for, as soon as there's plenty of vulnerabilities, it just, the chances just outweigh the benefits, and it gets to a point where you have to kind of consider a future with these massive risks on your watch. So yeah, it's going to come up, and there's probably going to be Windows 10 machines still running in 12 years time, but
yes, always are. And it'll be a mission critical thing.
Yep.
With running on the jankiest of servers with the brand new shiny ones with nothing happening on them whatsoever.
Yeah. So I guess if we move on for the next question for now, guys, if you want to drop any questions in the chat as we go along, feel free to do so, and we'll pick them up as we go. So for a new possible entry for most impactful supply chain compromise, F5 Big IP, what happened and how bad is it?
So this is one of those breaking news kind of in the past 24, 48 hours type situation. So if you're not familiar with F5, they are, they do big network software, like real big networks. So critical infrastructure, Fortune 500s, chances are F5 big IP is probably running somewhere in their networks. They were compromised by a nation state backed threat group. They discovered the compromise within the last few days, but apparently the compromise has been ongoing since supposedly a whole year. So this foreign nation state backed threat group has had access to their dev and engineering informational systems and production environments. Well, their development environment engineering knowledge systems. So that now means that those threat actors have, well, what do they have? Probably source code, a lot of very valuable engineering information, industrial trade secrets. What does this mean they can do with it? Well, sky's the limit almost. It depends on what did they get access to.
What they don't have.
Yeah, and what they're going to be able to reverse engineer or leverage for discovery of vulnerabilities so that they can be weaponized and put out into practice. And if they are already been weaponized and put into practice. So this is early, as far as what's publicly available, very, very early on this one. But because this is big networks with big companies with big data, could be a pretty big one.
Yeah, I think just in the fact that CISA has actually issued an emergency directive, which I guess they don't do lightly, especially considering the government shutdown at the moment. What does that actually tell us about the severity versus typical vulnerabilities?
So if CISA takes the time to issue something into the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, that's where they say, hey, here's a time stamp. You've got 30 days to patch this or something, is usually the way it goes. But whenever they issue these types of specific advisories for a specific attack from a specific threat group, it's a little bit bigger. They're like, yes, everybody pay attention to this, please, is kind of the way you should read this.
Yeah, it's literally saying here, disconnect all public-facing F5 devices. It's not like there's this little mediation you can do. No, just unplug it now, yesterday, please.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely like I said, for those big environments, if your day has not been quiet for the last 24 hours, I imagine there's been a lot of network engineers that have not slept.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's there are some situations where it's like a patch and pray, or kind of the thing is, it's still early days. And there's not a lot of information out there,
right?
And what should their incident response really look like right now? Because obviously, CISA themselves are just saying unplug it.
Yeah,
there's going to be situations where you can't do that because it's running in a business environment. And
right, yeah, this is one of those situations of like for my personal set of operational guidelines I would have implemented. This would be a assumed compromise if I had this in my environments. I would automatically assume it has been compromised. I need to begin investigations as though I have some indicator that the environment that piece of equipment has been compromised or that service has been compromised. Because even if it hasn't been, you don't know that it hasn't, but you also need to have the tooling and the monitoring, the IOCs, the Sigma rules, the whatever it may be that you're going to need to look for that in the environment.
Yeah, I'm just having a little look now through the actual mitigation directive itself, and they're kind of being purposefully vague by the looks of it. Obviously, they've listed hardware affected and the basic software like Kubernetes and all the rest of it. But yeah, the scope looks huge. As you said, F5, loads of stuff. F5 is everywhere. What would be your number one tip right now for someone who's got networks full of F5 devices and is
Right now, just give everybody all the Grubhub they want for the next couple of days while they're digging you out of.
yeah
This is not. So if you're not on the engineering side of this and you're on the decision making side of this, and you now know that this is, this is your headache, but you don't know how much of a headache it's going to be for the team dealing with it. This is going to be a very big headache for them. Take care of them. They are not going to be happy campers for quite a few days or weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of in a decision-making process. If I kind of mention the co-op situation in the UK, they decided to pull the plug to prevent any further potential hacks or anything that could go wrong with these exposed endpoints. So it's kind of, you have to decide risk versus, payoffs of that. I think for many people, it's going to be pull the lot and patch everything.
Yeah.
Until we get somewhere in a stable position, because it looks pretty severe.
Yeah, and everybody needs that. If you can't answer the question, when do we pull the plug? That's a question you need to find the answer for, because you never want nobody that's involved in the decision making process needs to be asking that question. We should already know what the answer for that, so as soon as it happens, it can be responded to.
Yeah. Well, I guess that wasn't the only supply chain attack that we've learned about over the last few weeks. So, does this other one have the potential to do as much damage as the F5 breach? Before we go into detail of what it is.
So I don't think it's going to have the ability to have as far reaching and as significant of an impact as the F5 will, potentially, depending on what comes of it. But I think more, the audience is more likely going to run into this one with the compromise of SonicWall cloud configuration backups. So anybody that was taking advantage of this, this is now, for you, this is your kind of assumed compromise. Somebody has the configuration information if you were using this feature. So go lock down, follow remediations, change your passwords, do audits, look for unusual activity, unusual logins, do your due diligence to make sure that you respond to it, not just oh, we've applied an update, we've changed the password, we're now okay. It's you need to actually do a little digging in one of these scenarios where you have lost control of that configuration information.
Yeah, I think it's never trust vendors when they say it's an estimate of 5% because it's now changed to 100%. I think that alarm bells were ringing at the original figure, and it's definitely developed into more of a, basically, yes, your backup has definitely been accessed and your configuration data is definitely in someone else's hands that is not supposed to have it. There is no other alternative at this point.
Right. And this is one of those things for me that even, this is a possibility with any type of SaaS or X as a service. Because there's just that understanding of, yes, you are providing your data to someone else for them to handle. But you have to kind of accept that risk, just knowing that, yeah, that's the way it is. You're never in today's world, you're not going to get away from that. It's kind of simple fact.
Yeah, I guess we've kind of already touched on it, but for anyone who's not using SonicWall, or maybe that are and actually maybe don't know the full picture, Why is this such a nightmare scenario? What is actually in these backups? We know there's configurations, but what specifically is in these backups?
So this is what's going to allow somebody that if they have access to this database and they find you your perimeter, your exposure point, they're going to know an awful lot about how to take advantage of it, what the network they're going after looks like, being able to potentially just the equivalent of just being able to walk through the unlocked front door. So it means that potentially a threat actor could easily have full control over or full access to a network, and then anything that they can lay their hands on within the network that's either has an exposed vulnerability or is misconfigured and is going to allow access. That's why this is a small thing, but these types of perimeter breach scenarios are why I always advocate of, regardless of what we may have learned back in the day about how many problems we can solve by disabling Windows Firewall, don't disable the firewall on your endpoints anymore. Your endpoints need to be protected from other network traffic within the local network just as badly as they need to be protected from, traffic from the outside.
Yeah, I guess if we're looking at in this case it's SonicWall, but loads of MSP owners or even clients or even end users are going to be thinking, I've got a specific brand of firewall or router or switch or access point or whatever in my network. What if this happens to me? Are all the backup services unsafe? What should we be backing up configs to? And how do we make sure that that data can't be stolen, or in best practice, kind of prevent it as much as possible? What would you suggest that these guys do?
Right, right. So you always have to perform threat, you should be performing threat modeling for any significant decision you're going to make. And if you would say, you're using SonicWall, small retail environment, small retail operation, 5, 8, 10 endpoints, and that's about it. And there's only $800,000 worth of revenue a year flowing through that thing. Okay, yeah, you're probably not going to be very concerned in these types of scenarios with these types of that configuration data being exposed or stole or being somehow misappropriated by somebody. So in those kinds of situations, it's convenience. It's, the convenience of it being there, of it being available, of it being tied to an account. And so that if something happens within the environment, even though, you shouldn't be keeping your backups of anything within the environment, you still have a way to get those configurations back. However, well, how would you say the desirability of this feature, the attractiveness of being able to have that cloud backup is usually to make up for the lack of the capability to do it the old-fashioned way of being able to SSH into an appliance and backing up the ACLs or backing up the config file and storing it somewhere else on the network on a recurring basis as a cron job for doing it the old-fashioned hard way. And these cloud backups kind of service like this, they offer that convenient way of doing it for those that don't have that skill set. But in those environments where, of course, you can't tolerate, this type of security data or security configuration data to kind of escape your controls, such as, CMMC, level 2, NIST 800, 171 stuff, some other things, then you would have to take it into consideration.
Yeah, I'm just looking through here the remediation, and this is what they themselves are suggesting, and obviously additional locations to update critical components here. We've got user passwords, TOTP bindings, shared secrets, encryption keys, service credentials, and administrative accounts as well. Obviously, all of those need changing, and I guess you'd say, as best practice, these should be changed on a regular basis anyway.
Right. Yeah, this would be part of, if you're on the MSP side of things, that this would be part of the checklist of things that we did right prior to QBRs. Because, well, one, hopefully all of this is automated in your systems and in your operations so that all of that isn't that big of a lift. And then, one, it's, well, once you've automated and standardized it, what is the penalty from doing it frequently? There is no penalty. It's only a benefit. So, work that into as part of your QBRs, by proof of value of services delivered.
Yeah, totally. I think it's just something that should be in every single base layer of contracts with any MSP, any client. Look at what is in your organization, anything that can be changed on a regular basis without any kind of overheads, do it. There's no reason to not do it. It's just going to enforce your security a bit more. If you're on a rolling basis of, say, 30 days or something with encryption keys, by the time these guys, the attackers, have taken the vulnerable data that's been exposed, like the passwords or the admin accounts or TOTP bindings, the secrets, whatever it is, they've already changed. So yeah, great, we've got your stuff, but it's completely useless to you now. So that's something that you can do, and obviously backup is just one element of that. But if you're backing up this vulnerable data, if it doesn't need to stay that way, keep changing it.
Yep.
So I was going to move on to Patch Tuesday. So Microsoft removed a vulnerable driver, which may end up breaking some legacy business communication implementations. What are we losing by updating to October's cumulative updates?
So we are losing the gear, if I've said that right, modem driver. So this is a driver for, modems. For anybody that's old enough to remember, goodbye AOL dial-up just a few weeks ago for its final end of service. But this is a vulnerable driver that, it's an escalation of privilege. So you can take advantage of it and I believe gain system access or be able to execute as system. So basically you can do what you want. So this is one of those types of drivers that could be used in a bring your own vulnerable driver attack for bypassing EDR, except for, they don't have to bring it because this exists on every single Windows device pretty much in production at the moment until, well, this update. So Microsoft's way of dealing with this they're just like, hey, we're just going to delete it. We're going to get rid of it. Who really needs a driver for modems anymore in this day and era? So for the vast majority of everybody, this isn't going to hurt, but there may be some poor souls out there somewhere where their legacy business applications going to fail to work because they did some type of virtualization of printing through a modem driver. So
someone's having a bad week for sure.
Yeah. So it might be a headache for you. It's worth just knowing that it's an edge case that might happen because, hey, you might be that one person that knows about this and saves the day because you save everybody half a day of troubleshooting. But it just goes to show that, we have so many things that are still inside of our operating systems that, they're artifacts, they're vestigial, but they're still there, expanding the attack surface of the systems, and we're continually having to dig out of that technical debt.
Yeah, so for someone who's not reading in depth all the MSRC security updates or maybe the Patch Tuesday notes when they actually come out, what would be the first sign that someone's system has been affected by this update and the drive has been removed?
Oh, so like if this would manifest as a help desk ticket complaint from somebody, using something like FileMaker version 8 that's 20 years old or so, where, just all of a sudden there is this problem with printing on some old oaky data, dot matrix printers or something like that, that's, on the other side of an industrial plant where somebody managed to there's still some network hubs in use.
Yeah.
So those kinds of weird communication systems on legacy implementations of some type of printing over a wire at distance.
Yeah, so I guess with these kind of updates, they feel a little bit more like one of those. Obviously, as we know, it's a legacy driver, so there's not going to be thousands of people affected, but it's a little bit like one of those security versus operational continuity moments. And how
Right.
should any organizations that are affected by this really be thinking about this kind of trade-off and staying up to date with security?
Well, yeah, this is one of those things of, if this did affect you, or even if it's not this particular thing, there is always a chance that if you have a legacy system that is older than 10 years and your business relies on it, um, you know, you're against a ticking clock for, how long will it be viable for us to continue to use this for multiple different reasons, whether it's for security reasons or it's the operational cost is starting to outweigh what it can generate for you, or where it's, hurting your ability to scale and compete because it's slowing you down and you're having to deal with the inefficiencies of, the cobbled together solutions of, 10, 15 years ago. So you have to be really mindful in those decision makings of, uh, you can make the business decision, but again, you always want it to be an informed business decision, informed by people that understand, what the impacts can be.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those cases that the guys that found this vulnerability and are sat in Microsoft Office or wherever they're working from, and they're thinking, how many people are really going to be affected by this? I think at this point, for the sake of the majority of people involved here, it's better to just patch this out by removing it. But
Right.
if, for example, there is someone who absolutely needs this driver, or are they stuck between security and functionality, or is there a workaround that they can just
So
implement?
this would be one of those situations of, well, do we take in micro segmentation of the networks, or just segment them over, give them their own VLAN, isolate them, um, spin it up, virtualize it, um, make it as a, just a point in, just keep it as that point in time quiesced VM that can just be used when it needs to be used and then shut back down again when it doesn't need to be used. Um, you can put some mitigations in place. You can put this driver back in place on the system as well. So, you can be a little workaround with it. But it's always does the business understand the implications of making the decision of keeping it around still? Because sometimes it's can you prove that replacing it or the whole system replacing it is worthwhile for the business? And if you can
Yeah,
make that point and make the financial gains point for it, it's a lot easier to get somebody. It's a lot easier to get something done.
yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? It's just that it's that ever balancing equation of, is on this side of the risk going to cost more from a potential breach than it is to change it out, upgrade the hardware, implement a new process into the business. And if this one is then cheaper, it's obvious that that's the answer. Just get rid of it. And I
Right.
think that's the best thing moving forward, as is loads of cases similar to this one.
Yep. That's, anybody that's been doing this for more than 10 years, then this is probably the fourth time you've had to have this conversation about
Yeah.
why we need to upgrade to the new OS.
Yeah. So I guess enough about the vulnerabilities and stuff for today, Lewis. As part of your role at Enable, you have the pleasure of traveling the world, going to meet some clients and up to all kinds of different fun activities. So do you want to talk us a little bit through about your trip from London to Chichester and then back up to Ipswich? What were you going to do as your role as head nerd at Enable?
Oh, yes. Just because, our role is education and advocacy, both directions, from Enabler and our exposure to all of the MSPs and IT professionals that we interact with, the absorption of that wisdom, distilling it and offering it back out, but also taking it in so that we can understand the challenges of those that are actually have their hands on our solutions out in the field and using them, hearing directly from them where it's where they are loving it, where it's helping them, and where they would like for it to help them more. So I got the opportunity to do that at some events in England, and it was quite an experience. I got to go into London, do an interview, then take the train down south, do an event there. I got an opportunity to talk with a lovely group of individuals, and then turn back around up to Ipswich and have another conversation with a lovely group of individuals. And it went the full range of the technical conversations about Enable, our solutions, and what we can offer and where we can help, to the the cybersecurity adventures that we do, which are little interactive executive level tabletops that we do to just kind of show that tabletops don't have to be boring and technical to get the point across, and that they are wonderful, wonderful tools to communicate with C-suites, executive decision makers, whenever they're, whenever you tell the story correctly with them.
Yeah, what does the energy actually feel like with these partner events compared to like major cybersecurity conferences? Is it a bit of a different vibe? Is it more kind of integrated with the people?
It is, especially for me, just because it's not often that I'm not having a conversation with somebody that I've not been either in their role or adjacent to their role, either as a as a system administrator, as a bench technician, as a service deliveries manager. I've faced a lot of their challenges, been through them, and still trying to find out how to effectively solve some of them. Um, but it's because I can sit there and have the conversations with them about their actual challenges in the field, and kind of kind of feel their pain from a personal point of view. Um, the conversations, I don't want to be cheesy with it, but the conversations are real. They're not product conversations. They're industry challenges and how do I make my business better conversations.
Are there any kind of particularly memorable conversations about maybe like war stories or anything from the partners that really stuck with you?
One of the conversations, um, one of the conversations I was adjacent to that I got to hear and be a part of was about the challenges around the use of AI and the challenges about of whenever a company makes the decision of, okay, yes, we are going to leverage an AI tool for our specialized set of data, or we're going to purchase chat gpt enterprise or Azure Copilot, whatever it may be. The company makes that decision, and then all of a sudden you start getting products from other AI tools being submitted for work. And well,
Yeah.
how do we control that, and how do we deal with that? And actually ran across some rather elegant technical solutions and some product-based solutions for that, but on this trip. But also just the have you had the conversation with the employees that they just shared confidential private financial information with an unapproved third party, and breaking it down to that language
Yeah.
of so it was, so I have like, that's now a new question I'm going to ask almost everybody whenever they come to me with that question of, what do I do about employees using AI tools they're not supposed to use? Is like, well, did you tell them that they're fired? In the sense of, if they had said that they had disclosed private protected financial information to an unapproved third party,
Yeah.
you would immediately say yes. The answer is yes, they're going to be fired, especially if they have ethical or licensure obligations.
Yeah, I guess that's a risk of real world environments and people wanting to make their jobs a bit easier or a bit overloaded with workflow, and they're like, "I'll just throw this in ChatGPT. I'll just get it to spit something out, save me a bit of time because I can't be bothered." Meanwhile,
Right.
you've just thrown in like 3 of your USPs into some AI chatbot, and that's kind of, you don't know who's got it then. It's gone into training, it's gone into other AI bots. There is no way to claw that data back once it's out there.
No.
I guess, did anything really surprise you about what MSPs are really struggling with right now, as well as obviously the whole AI situation versus what you really expected to hear?
Um, I think mainly it has been the, I don't want to say uneasiness, but a little bit of slight reluctance still on how are we going to help our clients implement AI safely. For
Mm.
systems integrators, they're going to be more on the forefront of that. But MSPs, kind of like with cybersecurity, I highly advise, don't um, if as an MSP you were always reluctant to have the cybersecurity conversation because you were not an MSSP, and that probably stunted you more than what was necessary. um don't do the same thing with AI. Don't say, well, what, we don't do AI, therefore I'm not going to talk about AI and I'm not going to address AI. You should still be conscious of it. You should still be talking about it, even if your clients, you're not going to be doing anything of the actual implementation. You can
I
still
think
be there to consult and to guide.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of AI is going to turn into what used to be the cybersecurity element of, we're an MSP, but we don't deal with security. Everybody deals with security.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have to deal with AI, whether you implement the software in your own environments or not, or whether your clients use it or not. You're still going to have to be aware of it and the risks that come with anyone having access to it, even if, as we were just talking about these employees, if they use it personally, it doesn't matter if it's part of your business structure or whether you have already green-lighted cybersecurity or AI tools and remediations around them. If someone copies and pastes your USPs into AI and you don't know what that means, if it's not on your radar, that's kind of something that I suppose now has to be for everyone.
Right, right. And if you've never and if you've not traditionally had conversations based on risk, this is, again, you may be blind to having, your customers, your decision makers you deal with are definitely going to be blind. So they're going to ask the questions. You might as well be the one providing the answers.
Yeah. Well, Lewis, as always, thank you so much for joining us. And if anyone who has been watching wants to hear a bit more from you about anything we've talked about or anything cybersecurity in general or any of Enable's products, how can they reach out to you?
You can always reach out and find me at the Security Pope. Um, on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Twitch here and there on occasion doing some coding. No VODs at the moment. And also you can check out enable.com/events, and you will see any upcoming webinars or boot camps or master classes we may be offering. I've actually have one coming up on November the 4th on conducting tabletop exercises, how to get started with them, a couple of scenarios, and some templates I'll be handing out as well.
Awesome stuff. Well, thanks again, Lewis, for joining us, and we'll see you all next time.
Pleasure as always, Ed.